down to Biscayne.
Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds.
Down to Biscayne.
Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome into another post-game edition of 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. This is the last time you're going to see that intro and that off-the-floor graphic. We have finally gotten a new intro video that Sean Rochester worked on, so that'll be coming up shortly. I didn't get the chance to get it in for the show tonight, but excited for that to drop. Excited for tonight's floor plan. It is a post-game edition. Digital Adel joins me. The Miami Heat finally get a W. It's been a while. I know they got the game in Toronto, but I guess since the Jimmy trade, it had felt like victories were hard to come by. 131-109. They win in Atlanta, or they win in Miami against Atlanta. This is one of those home-and-home series. And the theme of the night was really, from my perspective, the difference in shooting, right? Like in Atlanta, they could not buy a basket tonight. They were 23 of 42 from three. That's almost 55%. That's just huge. They had, what are we looking at here? 39 assists on 45 made field goals. So it was just a completely more fluid, offensive game. Adel, your initial thoughts before we dive into the player of the game and get into the segments.
Yeah, I was really pleased with the disposition in which the team came out with tonight. I mean, the ball movement was fantastic. Anytime you get that many assists, you're going to have a great recipe to try to get a Heat victory. I really like Davion Mitchell's aggressiveness. Andrew Wiggins' aggressiveness in that first half is something that's going to get overshadowed in this game. And I don't want people to lose sight of how impactful Andrew Wiggins was early going to the rim. But that's his MO. Like, he gets really aggressive in stretches, but he never stays that way for the whole game. But that was picked up by Davion Mitchell. Haywood Highsmith played a good role. And Tyler Hero shot the lights out for big stretches of the game. I just thought it was a very good breath of fresh air for the Miami Heat fan and audience to be able to see an offensive output like that.
Yeah, they needed it. They needed a game where it wasn't close. Also, this team needed to gain confidence. It looked like they got some of that in Toronto, and it obviously didn't translate because then they ended up dropping games before tonight. They start to get back on track. And I like that it was a game where a bunch of different guys contributed. Like when we talk pre-show, just quickly, and trust me, we don't take a bunch of show notes or have a long pre-show meeting, but we just talk prior to going live about who's the player of the game. We're at a point now where you kind of expect Tyler to get you 24 and somewhere around, 10 assists is a lot, but tonight, so he was particularly efficient with only 2 turnovers, but you expect 24 from Tyler. Bam gave you 20 and 9. That's kind of like what he's morphed back into as the season has gone on. But yet when we talk about the player of the game and you see the chat, there's another guy that we're going to get into more specifically now, and that's Davion Mitchell. Let's get to the segment, the Insurance by Lynette player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So, yeah, I mean, there's so many people to go to. You talked earlier about Duncan. He was very deliberate in his action tonight, 9 of 16, 24 points off the bench. Haywood Highsmith played a big role, but the chat is lighting up about Davion Mitchell, who was 7 of 8 from the field, 5 of 5 from deep, had 20 points, his best offensive output in Miami, if I remember correctly. I don't think he's gotten above 20. 6 assists, 2 steals, only 2 turnovers, stayed out of foul trouble, ball hawk. I think people are thinking as he approaches restricted free agency that Adel, they probably want to keep him around. He seems like a Miami Heat player. Your thoughts on Davion Mitchell's performance tonight against Atlanta?
I thought Davion Mitchell was fantastic. I mean, he's a Heat lifer type of guy, in my opinion. He's one of those guys, even if he's not a starter for you on a championship or playoff contending team down the line, he could be a high level backup that is going to be able to play spot minutes for, spot starts for stretches of the season and you not have a drop off. His biggest thing throughout his entire career is, can he hit the outside shot to keep teams honest? So that way, once they start respecting that 3 ball, he can get in the lane. You saw the assists climb once he was able to do that, leading into one of the plays of the night that we're going to talk about a little bit later. If he can hit that 3 ball, it just opens up everything for him. His point of attack defense on Trae Young was outstanding all night. He harasses everybody. I mean, he switched out on the bigger guards. He plays against smaller guards. He's just a bulldog, man. The 2 steals don't tell the tale of how impactful he is defensively. So
that's a super great point. That like the 2 steals is not enough. When you look at Trae Young, I didn't glance at this until now. He did get to the free throw line 8 times, and I guess that's good for Trae Young. But 4 of 12, to be held to only 12 field goal attempts in 35 minutes for Trae Young, that's like a feat in itself to me. Usually Trae Young is getting up more field goal attempts than that. So it was a good game. Mitchell continues to endear himself to Heat fans. I think that they like that he picks up full court and that he's like a ball hawk and he's disrupting possessions and he's he's always kind of a magnet for being in the fray. And that is kind of what you want to see from that position. He's like the one we talk a lot about maybe having a team where Tyler Hero is the smallest player on the court. Davion Mitchell's maybe like the exception to that rule where you can get by with him out there for stretches with Tyler and you're not necessarily at a disadvantage from a size perspective because Davion plays in a way where it's not necessarily as big a risk as some players that are his height. So, that's a huge point for him. But there were other guys that played well. I want to call out the rook, Khalil Ware, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 of 6. So he was efficient in his minutes. I think that they found some other lineups tonight that worked really well. Duncan was leaned on heavily off the bench with 32 minutes. Anybody else before we get to the other segments that you think deserves a shout out here for tonight in their victory against Atlanta?
So I want to talk about Haywood Highsmith for a minute.
Yeah.
Haywood Highsmith, we're going to talk about him in another segment, but his offense was really clicking tonight. I mean, he shot 80% from 3 tonight. He's 4 or 5. And he was 4 or 5 from the field overall. So if he can give you that type of offensive production in 5 assists, 7 rebounds and 5 assists, if he's going to give you that, he's going to be a player that can be in that second unit that can really help you win basketball games. But as we're going to talk about in the next segment, there's some limitations to his game in terms of consistency. But I just wanted to point out he had an excellent basketball game.
Offensively, he was there. I think that the defensive stuff, also, he just played with energy. He played like a guy that wanted to stay in the rotation. And you're leading us directly into our next segment. We're going to get into the real estate shop defending of the house segment to talk a little bit about Haywood Highsmith, because a lot of social media was basically saying why has he not been playing Haywood Highsmith? And we're going to investigate a little bit why, because I think that there's some pretty compelling reasons why he wasn't getting played. But let's talk about that in a moment. Here's the segment from Real Estate Shop.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at the Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
So Haywood Highsmith back in the rotation. As you gave him his credit before we got to the segment, offensively, he was good. 27 minutes. I wanted to get that data point before we go forward because he went from not playing, and I think 5 of the last 6, or maybe 6 of the last 7 games he hasn't played. Don't quote me on that. We're going to be a little bit loose with that point of it. And then he gets major minutes. He plays really well. But there was a reason why he sat. Like there were a stretch of games where he was not playing well defensively, and that's where I want to hone in on. We chose this segment to kind of dive in here. There was probably a good 3-week stretch where Heat fans were calling for him to play a lot less. And Adel, you have some shooting splits from him that I think are interesting as well.
Right. I mean, well, just looking at his last 5 games, because he last played February the 12th, right? And the previous 5 games, he hadn't shot over 33% from the field or 3. There were a couple of games where he missed every 3 he took. And he shot, 16.7% from 3 February 1st against the Spurs. He shot 33% against Chicago, 33% against Philly. And then, like I said, he missed every 3 against Brooklyn and OKC. But defensively, which you wanted to talk about too, he was being hunted. He wasn't just not having good defensive games. He was literally being put in pick and rolls by other teams, and they were hunting him as a mismatch.
That's insane.
So if you're not going to be able to defend and you're giving that limited of offensive production, you can't stay on the floor. So it's not that Spo doesn't want to play Highsmith, or Highsmith was the reason the Heat were losing. He wasn't playing well at all in any facet of the game, and he needed to sit. And like you said, you hit the nail on the head. He was playing tonight like a guy that wanted to keep his minutes. That sense of urgency from having the minutes taken away was clearly there.
Listen, this is why sometimes you sit somebody down. You say, go sit your ass down and think about, how you're going to approach this. It's not new. We've seen him do it with Duncan Robinson. He sat him all of a sudden. You get, the DMP coach's decision. Terry Rozier is learning that lesson right now as we speak. And you're right. And this is, I guess we shouldn't question Spoelstra. I think that you can question him on a lot of things. There's been moments where we've started the fourth quarter with baffling lineups, and there's a million other things we can get into. He can be stubborn with no challenges, stuff like that. But I do think every once in a while you need to cycle through certain guys. And sometimes if they're playing bad enough, you have them sit. Then you find an opportune moment for him to get back in the rotation, and then they try to take advantage of it, and you see if you can work something out where a player starts to get regular minutes, ramps up, gets momentum, gets confident. Let's hope that's what's happening with Haywood Highsmith, but it's not some situation where he was just being benched and should have been in the rotation the entire time. There was a legitimate reason why he was sitting. And I just think that that's worth calling out because it was portrayed as if he was, playing at a level where Spoelstra should have been playing him all along. I saw that trend tonight during the game. Maybe I should stop looking at social media, but that I think we should debunk right off the jump here. All right, so we have one segment to go. We're going to get to our plays of the night. Anything we missed here? There were some Andrew Wiggins minutes. Do we want to talk about those? He was, got to the line 10 times, 28 minutes, 15 points. He's steady. Reminds me of the kind of impact that they got from Luol Deng initially. I keep drawing that comparison. I can't get away from it. Just in terms of impact. What were your thoughts on Wiggins tonight?
Yeah, I thought Andrew Wiggins was fantastic. The energy he came out with in terms of aggressiveness and attacking the basket. I mean, getting 10 free throws, you need those free throws, especially to settle a team down when you're struggling to get points in the previous game. Going to the free throw line, getting to see the ball go through the basket is one of those things that's always good for a team. And he's just he's a pro, man. He's a pro's pro. He plays really solid defense. But the thing that you want to tap into with Wiggins is that attack mode. If he can have that attack mentality most games, that's a win for this Miami Heat team. But what's really also highlights all the assists this team had, he had 6 assists also. So that group was really sharing the ball. It wasn't just one playmaker. It wasn't just one person. There was a lot of ball movement, man movement, and they really took care of the ball. They didn't turn the ball over a whole lot at all. Atlanta's defense isn't great, so
yeah,
that isn't saying that much. But to be able to get to the free throw line, I just think he's a steady veteran presence. He's going to have his ups and downs shooting the ball. His shooting form has always been a little bit odd to me. But overall, I mean, he's a better 3-point shooter than we've had at the wing position in a while.
Yeah, that's true. And I like his aggressiveness. I think early in this game, you referenced it earlier, there were moments where they needed buckets and he was aggressive, and that's good to have a player that has that mentality at any point in the game. They need, as many release valves as they can possibly find for offensive possessions. And so that's I think it's been a net positive so far with Wiggins in Miami. We'll see how that continues to develop. Before we get out of here with our plays of the night, and then we'll close up shop, I want to address something because it came up in the chat, and I think it's really worth mentioning. Jaime Jaquez, 7 minutes. They kind of went away from him after the initial stretch. He didn't play again, right? That was just a one 7 minute stretch.
You only got that one stint. Yeah, he only got that one stint. And Ethan pointed out on the Off the Floor Discord, Spo tightened it up to a 7-man rotation at the end. Only 7 people really played. So for Jaime to be out of the rotation, Alec Burks to be out of the rotation, Pelle Larsson's out of the rotation, and Ware didn't really get any minutes down the stretch either.
That's a good point that you're seeing Spoelstra in a mode. It sucks because it's February and you don't want to be in a situation where you're desperate for victories to the point that you're going to 7-man rotations in the second halves of games in February. That's not the time yet. You're supposed to be doing that closer to April, but right. The Heat are in a position where they need to get wins. This was against a team that they're directly in, vying for seeding within the Eastern Conference. So ultimately it was a big victory in that the Heat get back in the win column. They win a game against a division opponent, and they hopefully can start a streak here. They have I think it's 9 of the next 10, including tonight, 9 of the next 10 at home. It's a chance for them to try to make something of this season. I don't want to overstate tonight because, to your point, like if we look at Atlanta, they shot 50% from the field and almost 38% from 3. Usually when you shoot 38% from 3, you win. So their defense was awful. And I think you saw the the polarizing nature of the Atlanta Hawks in what we saw from both teams that are like Jekyll and Hyde, with what we saw the game, with the home and home, how bad that game was offensively to what this game turned into. So that was something else to watch. But Jaime Jaquez, it's tough because I thought with Nico going down, Adel, that he'd get the opportunity to step in and maybe regain a spot. And it looks like Haywood Highsmith is the next man up. Is there any other way other than him expanding the rotation that you see Jaquez getting minutes, or you think that this is probably something where he's going to have to sit now for a degree of time like Haywood Highsmith did, or how Terry Rozier did or is doing now?
I think it's exactly that. He's going to have to sit until an opportunity presents itself, either by somebody not playing well for a stretch of games or hopefully not another injury. But I don't see a way that he gets back into the rotation in a meaningful way if Spo in February is shortening up the rotation to 7 people. I don't see it.
Yeah, they need wins, and they're going to try to get them by any way possible, because this is the stretch that they'll know whether this is a season that they're basically forced to punt on, or if they have a chance to improve seeding in this play-in situation. If they're going to be on the road for the entire play-in, that does not bode well for them, I don't think. I think they need to gain confidence by getting some victories. So March is a big month. February, to close out this month, they have, this game, and then I think Indiana's up next at home. So that'll be an interesting way to close out the month. Indiana's always tough, and they bring offense as well. But we won't look ahead. Let's get to our favorite plays of the night before we close with the X-ray of the play of the day.
And now it's time for the X-ray of the play of the day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you if you work in a hospital or a medical office. Get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-ray of the play of the day.
So there were a lot. I'll call out the Davion Mitchell alley-oop to Bam Adebayo. That was particularly fun. Also, just as I'm looking through the game log here, with 31 seconds left in the game, Davion Mitchell steals the ball from Oyeka Okongu. Hopefully I said that correctly.
You're close enough. Okongu.
I think it's funny that Davion Mitchell is stealing the ball with 31 seconds left in what was ultimately a 131-109 blowout. But that's just showing you that that's the reason why Spoelstra is going to lean into him a lot. What plays are we missing? Are there any other ones that jump out to you? I thought Duncan was going to get a actual slam dunk there on one fast break, and he just laid it up. Any other plays that jumped out to you before we close?
Well, I want to go back to the Davion Mitchell thing really quick, because him and Trae Young were chirping at each other, trading expletives all night, right? And Davion did him dirty on the offensive end, man. He came down, gave him an in and out dribble, rocked him to the right, crossed back over left, and then threw that over to Bam. And I just found that hilarious because of all the trash talk that him and Trae Young were going through all night. Tyler Hero, I mean, you could really point him out a lot for his pull-up threes in that first half, because there was a possession where he got completely turned around defensively. I mean, he did a complete 360 on a closeout.
Yeah.
But then he came down and hit a big 25-footer right back in the dude's face. So, like, that's the thing you got to love about Tyler. There's no fear. There's no backing down from Tyler. So I found that to be good, to be a really cool highlight. There was a Bam corner 3. I know the fans are going to be hyped up about that. A Bam corner 3. And Kelly Ware had 2 threes. He had, his form looked really good. One thing I'll say about Ware, he gets in trouble whenever his feet aren't set up correctly. So as a young guy, sometimes his feet aren't set up right. Tonight, he had so much time because Atlanta's rotations were so bad. He grabbed the ball, gathered, set his feet. It was very mechanical, but it was beautiful form, and buried them. So I just wanted to point those few things out.
Yes, Khalil Ware continues to impress me with the consistency in the shooting. That was something that I didn't expect, just in terms of him being able to even get them up and then be within the flow of things where you don't feel like that they're forced. So he's doing a good job with that. And obviously, yes, we're taking Bam threes, although I think that a lot of what he's improved upon and gotten back to in the last, let's call it 6 weeks, has been about getting back to basics for him and getting away from the three ball. But we'll see. They got Indy up next. They are now the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, a half game behind Orlando for the 7 seed. We know how this goes. You really want to get to up to 6, but the Heat are currently 5 games. Let's see, 4 games in the loss column, though, if we really get it down to just looking at the loss column, 4 games behind Detroit. So it's going to be an upward climb to try to get to the 6th seed. That was really the goal, I thought, for most of the season. So 7 may be as good as you can get. They're right there. We will see if they can string together some victories here on their home floor. They get one tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. Adel, thank you to everyone who joined us live. We appreciate you spending your post game with us. And shout out to our sponsors and join Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. It's $2.99 a month. You can use the link in the description of this episode. Bypass the Apple upcharge. $2.99 a month. That's where you can talk Heat. It's the most Heat anywhere. So check out Off the Floor. Adel, again, we appreciate your time and peace out, y'all.
See you.